Kiss 106.5.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
Very good. You're here because you're doing your 5-city Australian tour from June 19 to the 25th. You can visit wolfofwallstreet.com.au. Who gave you that title, Wolf of Wall Street?
It was a joke because it was a character in Gilligan's Island. It was Thurston
was it?
Howell. Yeah.
Ah.
And his nickname was the Wolf of Wall Street. We were all watching one day. Used to give each other nicknames, and that
Yeah.
was it. There you go.
How have you found your experience here in Australia? I know that we all know what happened with 60 Minutes. You've had a radio station do something to you. Do you feel like it's just here, or is it everywhere this happens to you?
No, well, listen. I do thousands upon thousands of interviews. Some of them are really good.
Yep.
Some are tougher, and I love the tough questions. But sometimes it's pretty obvious that there's just such an agenda before you start, and the sad thing is I don't think that the people want to hear that. Like, people really, when I'm being interviewed, they'd rather hear the funny stories. They'd rather hear about the seminars I do, like helping people make money, learn how to close deals. And then there's probably just one journalist, maybe 2 or 3 people that want to know about what happened when the people lost money, 25 years ago. And I'm happy to answer those questions, but I don't think they think they're bringing up their ratings, right? But I don't think anyone really cares. Now, obviously with 60 Minutes, it got sensationalized and stuff, and it is what it is. But I have good interviews and bad interviews. I love Australia. I love the Australian media. So you're always gonna have a couple of ones that are flying a little bit off the radar. So
after our interview with you, 60 Minutes came out the EP and said that Jordan Belfort is a sad, pathetic narcissist who ripped off, more than $100 million from all these investors.
Wait a second, is he speaking to my ex-wife or something?
Do you feel like you've been bullied by them? Do you feel like you're partly to blame for the things you said back to them?
No, not at all. I'm totally fine with everything I said, and frankly, I'm glad I walked off the set. I mean, just to me, the questions were ridiculous. It was a ridiculous interview, and I did what I thought was right. And the only thing I don't want to do is distract from my message, which is that I go around the world and I have this amazing track record helping average people and young entrepreneurs become really successful. So the only negative is it might detract from that message, what I'm really coming here for, not to, go back and forth with some executive VP who basically knows nothing about success, nothing about, helping other people achieve success. He's trying to probably hold on to his job, and that's it pretty much,
Do you feel like people should just move on, that you've done your time, you've served your time, you've had the punishment, and that you should be able to move forward without that kind of criticism anymore, or do you feel it's warranted?
I don't mind the criticism. I really don't, because in fact, criticism keeps you relevant. The haters, serve a purpose in the overall scheme of things. The thing is, in nowadays with the internet, it's a very small, minute group of people that are hopping on that. They just scream really, really loud. So when you're a celebrity, if you will, right, you have to learn to say, you know what, people are going to say what they're going to say. I have my message. I know what my heart is. I know what my life is about. And I get, probably these, 100 postings a day on my Facebook wall and emails and stuff about I change people's lives. And that's really what I do. So people could say whatever they want. And frankly, listen, I just announced the U.S. tour where I'm paying back 100% of the profits of the tour to pay back all the people who lost money. So we'll see what they say in 6 months from now when everyone got paid back.
Right, so they'll get paid back, and hopefully
what's the goal? Listen, again, my goal is to pay everybody back, but I don't really care what other people say. You're going to have people who hate you no matter what. You're going to have people that love you, and then you're going to have people who are in between that say, hey, let me take an honest look and see what this guy is doing. And if anybody, I would challenge anybody, you go to YouTube, look at my videos, go read some of the postings that people make about that have attended my seminars, and you'll see what it's all about. And if it's not for you, then don't go. But when you look at the stuff about entrepreneurship, about taking control of your life, about becoming more effective as a closer, a salesperson, or a real estate agent, or an insurance, whatever your line of work is, if you look at the stuff online and you can't see the value in it, then you're just not looking. You're closed-minded. Shame on you.
Yeah, you do. I mean, like you say, there are a lot of people that receive great positivity from these tours that you do.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and you no doubt do polarize people. There's the camp that don't like you. There's the camp that love you.
Right.
Do they come up? Do the camp? Because we often say the trolls online are the ones that would never come up to you face to face. But do you ever get it face to face?
The only time I ever got it was in an airport where some news crew, Inside Edition, they stormed me at an airport, and we have an investor, a poor investor who lost all his money with you. His name is Brad Johnson, and he goes, I lost all my money, and I didn't think it was for real. Turns out that Brad Johnson is a multi-millionaire venture capitalist who's making who's the biggest crane manufacturer in the Western United States, and his wife worked at a local TV station. It was a setup. So, and I knew it because what person who lost money? By the way, who lost money? I feel terrible. I'm sorry about that.
And you're working to pay them back.
Of course. But who's going to go up to Canada to sit there and say, I lost all my money, I'm a poor person? Who would do that in their right mind? And I knew it. And it turned out that we actually did some research on the guy, and he's a multi-millionaire venture capitalist who invests in these risky companies for a living. He was saying, I didn't know what I was doing. So that's,
tell me the highest point of your life where you just were on cloud nine, this is the best ever?
It's now. I mean, my
really?
We
watched the movie.
In terms of listen, I was in London last week. I gave a seminar to 4,000 people, and everyone was clapping and cheering and standing up, and people getting massive value. And to me, I love that. When I'm when I'm on stage and I'm in my moment and I'm doing what I do best, which is helping other people become successful and making money myself at the same time, which I love doing. Right. That's when I feel my best. In terms of the pinnacle of the insanity of my life, it's probably when I was taking helicopters to Vegas, jets to Vegas, and then just gambling millions of dollars and going wild all night long. I mean, that's sort of the high point of insanity. But I prefer my life the way it is today.
What about the lowest?
The lowest was when I overdosed on when I got sober. 17 years ago, and the day before I got sober, I just was on a binge. I was on the bender of all benders, and hadn't slept in 3 months, and I got violent, and then drove my car through the garage with my daughter in it, and then I ended up overdosing, and then but thankfully that was the worst moment and the best moment because it was what triggered me to get sober, and that was 17 years ago, and everything flowed from there.
What about when you were waiting to go to prison?
Well, that was just death. That was being a walking dead person. That was far worse than being in prison.
I wondered that.
I wasn't getting, I wasn't being bent over in the shower in prison. It wasn't that sort of prison, right?
Yeah.
So, Bubba wasn't going after me, but it still sucked. I was in prison, right? But far worse than that was the 5-year period where you just you can't restart your life. I knew that once I went to jail, I'd have a chance for a fresh start.
Yeah.
I didn't think that this would end up happening when my profile would be 1,000 times greater after prison, and I'd be dealing with what I did. I never thought I was going to write a book. It was all sort of one step at a time.
Yeah.
So, but that was when I went to prison, I was happier that I finally was getting it over with.
What about the drug part where you're in prison? You were already sober and well and truly clean.
I was sober for a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were. What was prison life like then?
Well, it wasn't bad. Listen, my bunkmate was Tommy Chong.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
He? Yeah.
He's amazing, Tommy. Brilliant guy, and we had a blast together. Still prison. It sucks, but there was tennis courts there, so I got to work on my forehand a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would sit there mostly. What I would do is I would write, and I was teaching myself to write, and I would actually, in my own mind, because it's very easy to feel disempowered when you're in prison, and to also become that person, to emerge from prison being a different guy, right? I was determined to make the most of that time. So I would teach myself to write, and I would walk around and say, these people are all wasting their time. I'm not wasting my time. I want to do something great from this. And I didn't think it would come to this, but I was actively running this sort of dialogue in my head to keep myself positive.
Kiss 106.5.